All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Mr. Panu, and I'm going to be going over our COVID-19 guidance plan. I'm going to give about a couple more minutes before we get some more folk that are joining the stream. We'll be starting shortly. Welcome, everybody. Again, this is Mr. Panu. We're going to be doing a community meeting about our updated COVID-19 guidance plan, and as we welcome students back to school tomorrow. So I'll give it about another minute, and then we'll get started, okay? All right, welcome everybody. This is Mr. Panu. I'm going to be going over our updated COVID-19 guidance plan. There'll be an opportunity to also ask questions at the end in the chat. I just want to say welcome. I'm one of the administrators here at Mountain House High School. And again, we'll get started right now with updates to our COVID-19 guidance plan. And we look forward to seeing our students tomorrow at school. Okay. So one of the things that I did want to go over is as we welcome students back tomorrow, we are meeting again face to face. And in meeting face to face, one of the big things that we wanted to point out is we are still requiring the use of masks. That is something that is going to continue here. There has been some discussion about mask usage. We will still be implementing masks moving forward. So here is our welcome. I'll go over our return to school plans. I'll go over safety. I will also go over cleaning and sanitization. I will go over special logistics, COVID exposure and positive cases. That guidance has changed. And also just some questions and answers at the end of the presentation. So our return to school plans, we are starting in-person learning. We had started last year during the pandemic and welcomed our student body back to school. We're going to continue to do that moving forward. Tomorrow is the first day of school and we're super excited. Just as we've been navigating this pandemic before, any plan is subject to change as conditions do change. Our safety protocols are based on our current guidance. We're in direct discussion and guidance from San Joaquin County Department of Public Health. We do continue to meet with them weekly, and our board has approved the recommendations that have allowed for us to open fully tomorrow. So as I mentioned, the start of school is tomorrow. The bell schedule is located on our website. If you go to the Mountain House High School website, in the tab, you can see schedule, and you can see the schedule not only for tomorrow, but also Friday, in addition to all of the different schedules that we have in terms of events and rallies and whether we have testing. So you can take a look at that. Face-to-face classes. Students essentially need to attend all of their classes. When having the student body come, we value our time, especially when it comes to education and learning, and students need to be attending their classes. This year, there will be attendance consequences associated with students not actively going to their class. Where, very old school train of thought is if you're missing work, you need to make up that work. And the same thing was in that academic class time. If you're missing academic class time, you're going to be unable to continue and to get caught up with your studies. So success also is going to be utilized. That's something that we will dive more into next week. Success, again, is our 30-minute designated block. We've had it for the last 2 years, and it's used not only for reteaching and reviewing, but we've also used it for enrichment as well. It's a time for teachers to meet with students in a smaller setting, review any assignments or anything that they fail to master, and we want to build towards students' proficiency. So it's an opportunity for them to reteach and review. So students will be going over that inside their advisory classes alongside their teachers, and we'll be implementing success starting next week as well. For our online students that are fully online, the work's going to remain the same in that we are using our Edgenuity platform, and they will continue to meet with their teachers in addition to test using our testing center. ID cards. All students will be required to wear their ID cards around their neck. For those students that were unable to attend walkthrough registration, we did have an additional makeup one today. They can come to the ASB office tomorrow. They'll get their picture taken and they will be given an ID card. ID card, again, is for safety and to ensure that we have students entering campus through our designated gates and our designated areas. But all students need to have an ID card. Safety. Our general measures are, this is very similar to last year as we've navigated the pandemic and continue to do so. Students feeling sick should stay at home. We are asking our parents and our students to continue to use our screener. This is something that has been sent out and also will be reviewed during the course of this presentation. But if a student is feeling sick, parents, do not send them to school. Call into our attendance office. The numbers are listed on our website. You can call the main office and say, hey, my student is not feeling well. If a student shows up to campus and is symptomatic, very similar to last year, we send them to the nurse. We isolate as we check the symptoms. If we need to, we will send them home. And any student where that student was, we will clean and sanitize. Again, there's no consequences. If a student is legitimately feeling sick, we want to make sure that they are staying home and taking care of themselves. Examples of our screener is if your student has a fever, cough, shortness of breath, chills, fatigue, muscle pain, headache, sore throat, please keep them at home. We don't want to send a student who is sick to school, and you want to make sure that when they are coming, that they're in a good bill of health. And again, if you have any concern, please keep them home. This is our COVID screener. Again, this can be found on our website. We will also continue to send this out to our student body. If you need to report an absence because your student does have a temperature or a sore throat, you can please call the attendance office. We also have an online form as well, which is listed on the website, but you can report the absence. Again, if your student is sick, please keep them home. Our healthy hygiene practices, just like we did previously last year and as we've continued to do so, students, please wash your hands. We have hand sanitizer located in each classroom. When students are attending or going to the restroom, you want to make sure that you're washing your hands appropriately. We have hand sanitizers that are placed strategically across campus. And like I said before, each classroom also has hand sanitizer. Face coverings. This is something I had mentioned earlier. Students and staff must wear masks when indoors. When outdoors, you can remove your mask. However, the guidance is when you are inside the building, you need to have a mask on. If a student arrives at any one of our gates without a mask, we will provide them with one. If a student refuses to wear a mask, and we did not have any incidents of this last year when we opened up, they will be sent home. Your safety, child safety, and our safety are a priority, and we want to make sure that everybody is given a mask and ensuring that everybody is covering up when they're indoors. Arrival and departure, very similar to last year. We're going to be using 4 entry and exit points throughout our main gates. We will have our campus supervisors positioned at these gates. They'll be welcoming students. We're super excited to have the campus open tomorrow. Gates will be opened and then they will be closed during the passing periods. Gates will remain closed throughout the day. If a student arrives late to school, they will need to come to the front office. This is a little bit different than it was last year. The gates will open and then they're going to be closed once the passing period is over. After first period, and then after that, students will need to come through the front of the school. Entry and exit. Parents want to make sure that you stay in your vehicles, as you guys can see on the map. These are the 4 gates that we do have. The front of the school will be busy. I will tell y'all right now, is the first few days of school, we have a lovely line that's in front. Some advice, show up a little bit earlier, 10 to 15 minutes. You drop your child off. Also, the rear side of the school, towards our back parking lot, is a lot less traffic. You can always drop off over there as well, but the front of the school will be the busiest. This is our main drop-off area. Like I mentioned, parents, we want to make sure you utilize this if you're dropping your students off via the car. Also, you want to stay in your vehicle, parents. As much as we love having y'all walk them to the front of the building, please stay in your car. There's also going to be cones set up to help navigate the parking lot. And as you exit, we have 2 lanes that exit here. I know it's a little bit different, but because of the 2 exit lanes, that helps speeds up the traffic and exiting. And like I said before, we do have on the rear side of the school, which is towards the gymnasium, that you can also drop off over there. And it's a lot less traffic. This is an overview of our campus. As you can see, there's the A building, which is the administration building, and also where several classrooms are. The B building is the theater. The LC, or the Library Learning Commons, is on the far right here. This is our C building, which houses a majority of our classes. We also have our E building, which is our CTE and Pathways building. This is the gym. The small and large gym are inside the overall gym. And then we have the MPR. Towards the tail end of the school is we have our pool house, and then we also have our football field. But again, parents, if you can see my mouse, this is a great way to drop off kids as well, a lot less traffic. Our learning commons, we will continue to have a certain number of individuals in the learning commons. We have spacing, and we have adequate spacing in there and couches, but we want to make sure we're not overfilling the learning commons. So we'll welcome students in, but we're going to, depending on the capacity, students will continue to wear their masks while in the learning commons. Cleaning and sanitization. School is going to be cleaned daily by custodians. The bathroom's cleaned by custodians. There are no-touch flushing mechanisms, no-touch sink faucets. Frequently touched surfaces are disinfected regularly. We have our HVAC system. It meets Title 24 of the California Building Standards Codes. We have 2-inch plated filters rated with a MERV of 8 or higher. Our units cycle at least 6 times per hour. Units have fresh air dampers and allow 20% fresh air into the space every time that it cycles, and the excess carbon dioxide is expelled. All right, special logistics. Lunch. We're going to have lunch in our multi-purpose room. This is our main cafeteria. We had originally had a separate satellite locations. We're not going to move towards that yet, but we will start primarily in the MPR. Student lunches do not need to be pre-ordered. This is a big difference than it was before. All students, lunch is going to be free. All they need to do is they will come with their ID cards, they will get it scanned, and then they can pick up their free lunch. If students want to purchase a la carte items, and this was covered by Miss Bernie Hill, she had sent out communication, is you need to have your money on your students' accounts, and the deposits can be made at easyschoolpay.com. But again, lunch is going to be free this year, as it was last year as well. Students do not need to pre-order lunch. You can just come and grab it, okay? Eating on campus. Students are not allowed to eat in the classroom. Students can eat lunch at lunch tables that are located inside and outside the MPR and the quad. Also, when eating or drinking, students are allowed to remove their face coverings. Once they finish, they are able to place the face covering back on, very similar to what we did last year. And there'll also be a limited number of seats available inside the MPR. But we do have our lunch tables that are all around the outside of the MPR, and we also have them in the quad as well. What we found that to be very successful, and it just allows for a nicer lunch environment as well. Classes with shared materials. Students should not share their personal supplies with others. Ideally, kids have their own Chromebooks. We want to make sure that they're not sharing those Chromebooks. For classes where students do share some materials, disposable gloves can be provided if requested. Examples of these classes are in art, computer labs, culinary science, and music. If your student does request gloves, absolutely, we can give them those gloves, but we want to make sure that students are not sharing materials. Another change this year is that our locker room will be used. Students will dress out. That is different from last year. Last year, we were not utilizing the locker rooms, but this year our PE classes will be fully utilizing the locker rooms. Again, the general rule is that if students are inside the building, even when they're dressing out, they need to keep their masks on. When students are outside, they can remove their masks. PE activities, we definitely want to make sure that students are wearing comfortable shoes and also wearing the correct PE clothing so they're able to fully participate. Music. Music is going to continue to be played outside. We've actually spaced off an area underneath our MPR awning where students are able to play. There's 5-minute breaks that we'll give them for every 30 minutes of playing. Again, there's not going to be no sharing of instruments. Student medication. If your student does have medication and has over-the-counter need, a medical prescription, there is the medication at school form. You can go to the Lambertville USD school district website, and from there you're able to get the forms. Again, this will also be posted on our website. Therefore, you'll be able to click the links. But if there is student medication, you can actually make sure you get the form and then give it to our nurse. Therefore, your student will have that medication on hand. Okay. And before I continue, I just pulled up the chat over there. It seems like there's a couple of folks that have migrated over to this side of the meeting. Chat folks, thank you so much for pointing that out. We're also going to make sure that this gets posted online on our webpage as well. So this updated meeting will also be posted there as well. And this is one of the biggest changes that we have in terms of exposure and positive cases. I'll go up into the most up-to-date guidance from San Joaquin County Public Health. But if a student has symptoms or reports that they're sick with COVID, the student will be sent to the office. Students will be isolated and assessed by a school nurse. Students will be sent home. Students and teachers will be removed from the classroom, and custodians will clean and sanitize. And that process stays the same. You'll see at the end is our guidance and changes, what happens if there is a case on campus, and I'll go over that shortly. This is our return to school protocol for students or staff members. If a student is exhibiting any of the symptoms and they need to be sent home, there is specific returning to protocol. There is returning to protocol, a checklist that they need to have. They need to be fever-free for 24 hours, improvement in symptoms, obtain an acute infection test, and obtain a medical professional's note. If their student or the staff member ends up positive for COVID-19, there is a separate parameters and checklist that we need to go do to make sure that they're appropriately quarantining. So again, our return to school protocol, if your student or a staff member were to come sick and was displaying symptoms, there are specific checklists that we need to make sure that we adhere to before that individual is allowed to come back to school. They must be fever-free again for 24 hours and have one of the following: improvement in symptoms, a negative COVID test, or a doctor's note clearing the student to return. Definition of a close contact. Now, this definition has stayed the same. It was the same as it was last year as well. That close contact is defined by anybody that's within 0 to 6 feet of an infected person for at least 15 minutes in duration for a 24-hour period. Now, as the increase in the number of students that have been vaccinated continues to go up, if you have not submitted documentation about your student's vaccination, please send it to the MHHS attendance office, and then we can make a note of that. This definitely helps when it comes to quarantining and also making sure that those students that if possibly were exposed, there's a different set of parameters. But if you haven't done so already, so our freshmen and any new students to the district, if you have your quarantine information, you can send a copy of your card to the MHHS attendance office, and therefore we can put it into the file. Therefore, we can know if your student's been vaccinated or not. So these are our exposure guidelines of vaccinated students. If you come into contact with someone who is COVID positive, you do not need to quarantine. If you are fully vaccinated, and fully vaccinated means that there are, it's been 2 weeks post your second COVID shot, we will continue to monitor for symptoms. However, if you come into contact with someone who is COVID positive, if you are fully vaccinated, you do not need to quarantine. This is the same that we have. This is the same that we have for our staff members as well. Now, this is where there's been updated guidance. It's for unvaccinated. If there were unvaccinated students, but both students were wearing a mask, the new guidance says that they are eligible for a modified quarantine. What this means is they can still attend school because we are implementing masks and masks being used indoors. If they were to come into contact with somebody who was positive and both students who are unvaccinated had their masks on, they can continue to appropriately. Mask is required. They can undergo at least twice weekly testing during the 10-day quarantine and continue to quarantine for all extracurricular activities, which means that they wouldn't be able to go to sports or any clubs or any events of that nature, but they could have a modified quarantine in which they would still be eligible to come to class. Now, again, this is new guidance. If they are asymptomatic and they both were wearing a mask at the time of the exposure, they could undergo a modified quarantine if they also agree to get tested twice weekly during the 10-day quarantine time. If you're unvaccinated and one of the individuals came into contact with somebody, this is very similar to last year, who did not have a mask on, then you would adhere to a 10-day quarantine. Teachers would still send work out to those students if they are under quarantine guidelines. But this is different than it was in terms of if both students were wearing a mask in comparison to if one student or neither one of them were wearing a mask if they were exposed. So this is a question that comes up often. It's Mr. Pani, what happens if a student or a staff member tests positive? So we continue to liaison with CDPH. We maintain confidentiality as required by state and federal laws. We implement contact tracing and we consult with them. We'll take the information and then we call CDPH and then work in liaison with them to ensure that we're doing proper contact tracing. Same process that we had last year as well. Now, this is also a little bit of a shift, is if there's a classroom where there's a positive case and the teacher were to test positive, we would follow up with all the individuals that have had close contact. Again, the shift this year with the updated guidance comes from with staff members and students being fully vaccinated. If the teacher had to go on a quarantine, a sub would be provided. If a student tests positive, all students have had close contact. Now, close contact, again, is you were around that individual for 15 minutes within a 24-hour period, and that you were within 0 to 6 feet, the student will be followed up with. And again, it depends on the student's vaccination status and also whether or not a mask was implemented. If a student has to isolate, we will do the quarantine protocol. We will make sure that the student is aware of what happens next and also their family. Like I said, we've been going through this pandemic for 18 months now, and even as we opened up school last year, we did have incidences, in which we did have students that were quarantining, but we continue to follow our protocols. There's no attendance consequences. Several students had said, Mr. P, I'm worried that, I'm going to have an attendance consequence if I had to quarantine. No, we want to make sure that your safety comes first. Therefore, we'll continue to work alongside our students and families and follow the appropriate guidelines. Now, I like I said, I did see over to the chat. I just popped on right now. So what I'll do is I'm actually going to go back to the front of the presentation. I'll review some of the key points again, and then at the end we can start asking questions, and then we can go from there, okay? So I appreciate the chat, folks out there. I see you. This isn't pre-recorded. It is a live stream, and we'll go back just to the beginning. Parents, one thing I also will share is, as much as we love having visitors come to campus, we're still going to minimize the number of visitors to come to campus. Now, what that essentially means is, unless you have business in the office, do not come to campus. The office is primarily going to be closed as a walkway because we want to make sure that students are able to get in and outside the building quickly. If you like to bring your student lunch, please give it to them. You do not have to bring it during lunchtime. Please give it to your student. They can bring it to school. They're in high school now. Now, I know it's, this is different from years past, but we want to minimize the number of individuals that are coming to campus. And as we saw last year, it is successful in limiting those folks is when we don't have parents bringing food in actively. Again, you can give it to your students. They can bring it with them. They can eat it at lunchtime. So like I said before, for those parents that joined us a little bit late, we continue to get guidance from San Joaquin County Department of Public Health. We meet with them weekly. Our board has approved the recommendations for opening. We opened last year during the pandemic. We're opening again. First day of school tomorrow, so excited about that. Face-to-face classes. Students need to attend their face-to-face classes. This also includes success. Success is when you're meeting with a teacher, it's that intervention block. It's a 30-minute time that's built into your student schedule. And students will review all of this information with their advisory teacher tomorrow for the first day of school. The idea is that, we need students to be in class for them to learn. For our online students, we're going to continue in terms of they'll be using the Edgenuity platform and ensuring that they continue to get their academics via that platform. That's the same as it was for last year for our fully online kids. ID cards, again, they are mandatory and necessary. It's not only for safety, but for identification as well. If a student comes to school tomorrow and doesn't have one, they will be directed to the ASB office and we can print them one out. The ID card is also responsible for you being able to get your lunch and also when you're attending any activities and games. Our general measures is parents, if your student is sick, don't send them to school. Keep them home. If your student is displaying any one of these symptoms, again, please keep them at home. We want to make sure that a student gets his or her rest and recovery before sending them over. This is our COVID home screener. This is the same as it was last year. Again, if you need to report an absence or a sickness, you can call the office. It's 219-836-7461. Also, we have our online attendance form, which is going live tomorrow with the start of school. You may fill that out as well. Our healthy hygiene practices. We have sanitization stations all over campus. Each classroom has hand sanitizer. We want to make sure that kids are washing their hands appropriately. We'll continue to echo this message in our classes. Face coverings. All students and staff need to wear a mask when indoors. When outdoors, you have the option of removing it. Again, all staff, all students need to wear a mask when indoors. If a student arrives without one, we will give them a mask. Arrival and departure. We have four main entry and exit points. The front of the school will be a little packed tomorrow, just as it is typically with excitement and families. Families, if you want your students to get to school safely and not be rushed, show up a couple minutes early. If you show up 10 to 15 minutes early, there's a lot less traffic. We also have a main entry right over here, which is between our NPR and also our B building, our theater, and also on the rear side of the school between the gym and our CTE building. Those are all multiple entry points. Our main drop-off again is at the front of the school. Here's an overview of campus. This was also sent out yesterday as well. Anytime there's a passing period, all the staff members are meeting students in the hallway. So if you have a student and he or she's worried about location in classes, there's going to be multiple adults in the hallway able to greet them. And they can help them in navigating the building and make sure they get to the right class. Our Learning Commons is going to be open. Students need to wear a mask when in the Learning Commons. We're still going to be allowing students into the Learning Commons. Our school is going to be cleaned by our custodians. Bathrooms will also continue to be cleaned. We do have no-touch flushing mechanisms, and we also have no-touch sink faucets. We're going to continue to disinfect our frequently touched surfaces. Our HVAC system, again, meets Title 24 of the California Building Standards Code. Unit cycles at least 6 times an hour. We also have the fresh air dampers. Lunch, again, will be free this year, lunch and breakfast. If a student wants to purchase any a la carte items, they just need to have money on their account, or if they wanted a second lunch, they would have to be charged for that, but the first one is free. Eating on campus, students are not allowed to eat in the classrooms. However, they can eat inside the NPR and also the outside the NPR. We moved again, very similar to last year. We have picnic tables all across the campus as well, which allows for just it's a good, fun lunch environment, and it's cool to see the kids spread across the quad as well. Again, class materials that are shared, students shouldn't be sharing their materials, but if they are in classes where they're using, computers, or if it's culinary science, if they request gloves, we can absolutely provide that for them as well. This should bring everybody back to where we were. I know some of us joined late. There seems to be a snafu with a little bit of the link. So parents, I appreciate your patience. If you do have any questions, please put them into the chat, and I will do my best to start answering them immediately. For the self-screening, how does it work? The form is listed on our website. I'll also be sending it out as one of my weekly updates, or my daily updates, excuse me. If your student is sick, just don't send them to school. Call the front office, whether it's a fever, if they're not feeling well, if they're showing any of those symptoms that were displayed, don't send them to school. You can let them know that, hey, I used the self-screener. My student's not doing well. If a student ends up being exposed, parents, call the front office. Let them know. They'll put you in touch with me. My office will then coordinate with you, get the information, and then help in terms of contact tracing. Do not send your student to school. If your student tests positive for COVID, again, please call the front office. They will coordinate alongside myself and also the district, and then we will reach out to you and we'll tell you what the next steps are. Advisory classes, those are listed on students' schedules. For the most part, most of the advisory classes are going to be in the same location as the teacher's room. Teachers are also reaching out to students individually and letting them know if their room has shifted a little bit, if their advisory is somewhere else. The advisory is small cohort that kids are with actually for 4 years. It's an amazing opportunity that we have here because they get to build a mini community with a teacher that's not necessarily their one of their academic teachers, and your students will also be going over a lot of our rules, procedures, but also do a lot of team building, which we're focusing on this year. In terms of supplies tomorrow, the only thing you would need to bring is maybe one notebook and your student's Chromebook. Will students be required to dress up for PE tomorrow? Most likely not. We're focusing a lot on team building, especially 18 months of a pandemic. There's going to be a lot of community building, getting to know one another, and just welcoming everybody to campus. Can students use a car pass to step out and pick up lunch from someone waiting outside? The answer is no. If students want to bring lunch, bring it to school. We do not want anybody bringing students lunch because that helps lessen the number of traffic and the number of individuals that are going in and outside of the office area. Let's see. Success is a 30-minute intervention. The 30-minute intervention block, we use a program called Flex Time Manager. It's an online program. We've used it for the past couple of years. Students will have an opportunity on Monday of next week. They'll be working alongside their advisory teachers. They'll be able to see how to log into the program, how to sign up for their classes, and also what happens when a teacher requests them. The question I'm seeing, if anyone tests positive, will other students know about it? Your student will only be contacted if they were exposed. Again, we share confidentiality. We don't share who the other individual is. We have, and last year this happened, but we follow our protocols in that if your student was exposed, we go over what the procedure is specifically for your student. We send an individual email out to you and your student telling you what the next steps are going to be. If you need to pick up your student for a doctor appointment, that's perfectly fine. Just come into the front office. You can check out a student, but we will want to prohibit is if parents are coming in, pulling their student, giving them lunch in the ring. We're trying to, we want to stop that and mitigate that piece. Will juniors be able to come home for lunch? For the first few weeks, the answer is no. Eventually, we do have an off-campus lunch form like we did pre-pandemic. We will continue that, but we take a couple of weeks once we get students used to being back on campus. Thank you for that question. Let's see, what else do we have? We had a question in terms of schedules being changed. There's a lot of students that have requested schedule changes and families. Our counselors have over 2,000 requests. So they're working on those right now. Please do check Aries for the most up-to-date schedule change. Again, many students have also filled out change requests, so we're adhering to that. Can we get ID lanyards at the front office? Yeah, when you get your ID card tomorrow, if you have, or if you didn't get a lanyard, you can also pick one up from the ASB office. There will be advisory tomorrow. It's part of the schedule. Yep, we do have advisory tomorrow. So you'll follow the schedule tomorrow. It's online already, but you will have advisory, and your success is going to be back with your advisory teacher. The cell phone policy, students can have their cell phones, but when they're inside a class, students should put their cell phones away. A teacher will make it very clear to say, students, please put your phones away. And we'll make sure that the students respect that. Sometimes teachers say, hey, do pull out your phones if needed as part of an activity, but the teacher will make it clear to put the phones away. There's a question about if 100% of the students get vaccinated, will you remove the mask requirement? Right now, our mask requirement is based on our county public health guidelines. We continue to follow that until we are told differently. Like I said before in the presentation, we used our same mask policy as we had before from last year in terms of we're masked up, staff and students inside. We're going to continue to do that. In terms of uniform and clothing requirements, in the handbook, you want to make sure that you're not wearing anything that is gang related or violence related or displaying any prolific images. You also want to make sure that you are wearing clothes that you're not exposing your body parts, essentially, but there's no uniform requirements or anything. Students are provided an instrument for orchestra, band, etc. How to get out computer unlock. If you're having tech issues, you can email the IT department, which is at support@lambertsvilleusd.net. You can also go to the website and go to the IT department. They can help you out as well. Advisory is typically on Thursdays. However, as we also have success built into the schedule for the first few days of school, you'll be meeting with your advisor teacher during success as well. No, clear backpacks aren't required. These slides will be posted to the website. As you can see, parents and families, a lot of the requirements have shifted in terms of where we started out last year, but where we're at today. But the mask policy is still there. Has been that shift in terms of that guidance of quarantining, and we'd follow that. You are not allowed to have a snack or drink during class. Food is not allowed in the classrooms. For online pathway students, yeah, you will come and check in through the A building, which is the main office, and then you will go to your online pathway class, or if you were going to go to the testing center. Nope, excuse me. You will need to buy a combination lock for your PE locker. Something that also happened as we had shut down 2 years ago is PE items were removed from lockers and students had to pick it up. But because several students didn't have locks on their PE lockers, then a lot of the stuff got jumbled around. So you definitely want to make sure you lock your locker with a combination lock. ASB office is in the A building. It is on the corner. There's a window that's designated outside into the quad as well, so it's able to be seen. Student account password, that's a question to ask for the IT department. You can email them. Again, you can find the information on the website. If you have any questions about your schedule, please email your counselors. You can also find their information, which is listed on the website as well. You can drink. You can bring a water bottle, but we want to make sure that we're not eating or drinking inside the classroom. If you did need to drink water, you can definitely, as you're transitioning outside, have a drink of your water. Students are provided an instrument, and that's something that the teachers will go over for orchestra, band, etc. Yes, backpacks do stay with you all day. There's no lockers for that. Lockers are utilized for sports or athletes. We've had students that have been here the entire summer, actually, practicing and conditioning. So they utilize the lockers, and then those kids in the RPE programs. Your backpack will stay with you. You'll have only gym lockers. You won't have a regular locker, so your backpack's with you. But again, remember on the supplies, it's a Chromebook, maybe a notebook or two, and something to write with. Everything is online, and your teachers will cover that in class. Okay, any other safety related? Yes, only gym lockers. That is a great question in terms of how many outbreaks would constitute a school shutdown. That's something that we would coordinate with the California Department of Public Health and the San Joaquin County CDPH. Right now, we're still awaiting that guidance. If there was, like I said before, anytime we do have an incident of exposure, or if there is somebody that's tested positive, since we're in contact with them consistently, they would be the ones that would notify us if we needed to shut down. We do have water fountains on campus. How do you purchase a lock? Amazon, Walmart. All right. Any more specific questions? If you are on a flex period, you need to stay in either the MPR, or the quad, or the learning commons. We're not having students go into classes during their flex. There are water stations on campus where you can refill your water bottles if needed. Okay. All right. Any more COVID specific questions or the safety? Again, folks, I appreciate y'all joining me today. No, if you're required to go to Success, you have to go to Success. You got to be face to face with that teacher if you're already on campus. Those students who are not coming to campus, so those students that are fully online, they do, however, do come in for their testing, and if they need to, meet with a teacher or anything of that nature. The NPR, you can work on the tables if you'd like. Yeah. Rajiv, there are clubs. You'll see. We'll go over that tomorrow during your advisory. But we do have a lot of clubs. You can go to the website. You can see an updated list of clubs and also updated list of all the sports that we offer here. Okay. Well, it looks like we're getting towards the tail end of the questions. If there's anything specific, parents and students, are there after school activities? Yeah, tons of clubs have activities that are going on. Like I said, we've had sports going on all summer. Even right now, our football team is doing a fundraiser outside. Our dance team is here. They're also practicing as well. Volleyball is in the gym. So we do have lots of activities. Success, once students are using the Success program, our Flex Time Manager, it will tell you exactly what room to go to and where you're meeting your teacher. Success is a 30-minute intervention block. It is academic time that is used. All students have to go to Success if required by the teacher. But you also have choices on where you want to go. We'll explain that tomorrow when you meet with your advisory teacher. Okay. Well, folks, if there is any more questions, please let me know. You can send me an email. My email is on the website as well, kpanu@lambertvilleusd.net. I am super excited to see everybody tomorrow. This is going to be an amazing school year. Thank you for all of your patience. I'm glad that we got some folks caught up. Those that put the other link in the stream to the other folks, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Supplies, you don't need to bring anything other than a notebook, a pencil, or a pen, and your Chromebook. For Success tomorrow, you will go to your advisory teacher. They will cover all of that, so you'll know exactly where to go. We appreciate y'all as well. Thank you so much. Everybody have a good night, and I will see y'all fresh in the morning, okay?